The number 1 seed in action, Marion Bartoli, and she will be serving first. That's a good start. She was fired up and ready to go. Point number 1 yesterday, a couple of days ago, Monday night against Vesnina, and didn't look back. Well, Vesnina can come up with shots like that. We're going to be in for one hell of a match. That's a great return. Good strong backhand. It's quite tall, Elena Vesnina. Stands at 5'7" in the old language, or 176 centimetres. Great touch. That's a tough shot on a plexi cushion court because the ball does tend to sit up, but nice backspin. Just getting it over the nets, and Bartoli stranded at the back of the court. Nicely set up again with a big first serve. One of the features of Bartoli's game from Monday. That's a great serve. I have mentioned before, it's a service action that seems to change on a yearly basis with Marion Bartoli. And it's a very strange preparation. As you can see, the racket will go straight back and then straight up. And she gets tremendous power. Uses plenty of shoulder. Nice work from Vesnina into the net. Angelique Kerber has taken the first set from Ala Kudryasheva, 6-3 out on court 1. In all the rain delays, there's been one match that has been held over since Monday. We're now into Thursday. Agul Amanmuradova and Elena Rybarikova playing Hobart and Kudryasheva. Locked in the second sets, and the rains came and I haven't seen them since. Obviously, we've seen Govatsova and Kudryavtseva in singles action. So hopefully they'll get to play their match out on court 1. That's a nice finish from Bartoli, set up with a deep backhand. Landed off both sides, which is quite rare in the game today. She holds opening game. Just repeating, at Melbourne Park on Sunday afternoon, there will be a Rally for Relief, which is a wonderful name. Not sure who came up with that, but whoever they are, they've done a wonderful job.
Can you just leave? Come back at the changeover. Thank you.
Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Kim Clijsters, Sam Stosur, Leighton Hewitt, Novak Djokovic and Pat Rafter, the headline acts. The Rally for Relief tennis match is at Rod Laver Arena on Sunday at 2 p.m. Melbourne time. It's a special exhibition to raise money for the victims of Australia's flood disaster. Read that beautifully, Marion Bartoli from the back of the courts. Could see Vesnina was moving that way, had to pick a side. Great presence of mind too. There was plenty on that forehand from Vesnina to just put the pass cross court. Oh, frame. Club tennis, the joke goes around. That's why you pay for the frame. And the apology in there as well. Not a massive fan of the fake apology, because I don't necessarily believe that you should be sorry for winning the point. But of course it is tennis etiquette. Bartoli, as I mentioned, didn't make a final in 2010. Reached a couple of semi-finals. Oh, it's great. Double-handed full stretch. Great angle. Probably not looking to go for so much angle there, Bartoli. Nicely set up again. She's using plenty of angle, Bartoli. And the number 1 seed breaks 2 games to love in the opening sets. Just continuing on. Players in lead-up events in Brisbane, Sydney, right here in Hobart, Adelaide, Perth and Kooyong have all been inquiring as to how they can help the flood-ravaged communities and pledging money in assistance. So Tennis Australia will be coordinating the tennis community's fundraising effort, which will run throughout Australian Open 2011. It's nice from Vesnina, that mid-court ball. So the campaign includes Sunday's Rally for Relief, gold coin donation at Saturday's Kids Tennis Day, special shirt off their backs, ongoing auction of autographed player apparel belonging to some of the biggest names in the sport, And what's happening now, the ATP and WTA pledge of $10 for every ace served by players at the Brisbane International, Medibank International in Sydney, the Marilla International in Hobart, and the Australian Open. And of course, the proceeds will go to flood relief across the nation. If you are in the Melbourne area or travelling down to Melbourne for the Australian Open, tickets are $20. And they're available through Ticketek, ticketek.com.au. They're available now. Great serving from Bartoli. Switched on and ready to go again. We saw 12 months ago the tennis community gather at Rod Laver Arena for an amazing event, Hit for Haiti, which was the instigation of Roger Federer. That was a great day. Just missing. That was a great day of action too, and that raised a lot of money for the victims of the Haiti earthquake, and no doubt we'll see the tennis community and the general public in Melbourne get behind this great cause. It's off to a flying start again. Marion Bartoli, the number 1 seed. So a great start for Marion Bartoli, holding 3 games to love in the opening sets. So as we just check out what's happening on the outside courts, Angelique Kerber and Ella Kudryasheva. Kerber winning the first set on court 1, 6 games to 3. Players been delayed due to rain up in Melbourne. They're getting a taste of what we've experienced down here in Hobart. So the qualifying suspended on courts 3 and all the other courts there. So they'll get back on court hopefully today and start the women's qualification rounds, as they hopefully will get something on there. But Rally for Relief is the big news up there. So with Bartoli leading 3 games to love now in the second set, great pleasure to continue the guests joining me here in our commentary position. And from ABC, which is the government broadcaster here in Australia, stalwart I should say. Can I say stalwart? Peter Newlands from ABC Sport here in Tasmania.
Thanks, Pete. You can if you want. Yeah, you can say anything you like, really, provided it's reasonable. No, it's great to be here, and I love this event. I've been coming here since 2000. That was the first one I covered, so I think this is number 12. And of course, 2000 was the year that Kim Clijsters won, when she was still maybe 16 or 17 years of age.
Well, tell us about how the tournament has grown. As you mentioned, you've seen it since 2000 close up, covering it for the ABC. Yeah. It really has grown, and obviously sitting in this new facility, it's just magnificent.
It's hard to believe we're in the same place, but one thing that hasn't changed, Peter, is that the quality of players has always been really good. It's always been a really solid lead-up event before the... Gee, she doesn't miss much, does she?
No, she doesn't.
Marion Bartoli. But it's just always had a crack, not a crack field, but just a good, solid field. And every now and then we've seen a superstar, sometimes a superstar in the making, like Clijsters. In fact, that year that I mentioned, 2000, was the year that Justine Enham played here. She really was 14 or 15. So
yeah.
It's never been short on quality in terms of players. What it did have a problem with was the facilities. And it's just so pleasing to see that this complex now is a up-to-date, you'd almost have to say world-class facility for these players to compete in.
You've covered a lot of sport over your time, particularly here in Tasmania.
Yes.
The event here is great because it is a a locked-in event every year. With the other big sport down here, the cricket, it's hard to tell from one year to the next what fixtures will be coming down here. I know there's a one-day international that's going to be played down here in Hobart, and occasionally you get test matches, but it's good for the people of Tasmania to know that every year, this time, they're going to actually see some world-class tennis.
It's a very good point. It's a really good point. The cricket fixturing is usually very strong, and we're very lucky, I think, in a lot of ways to get the fixtures that we do, but you're never really sure, as you say, when it will be, what it will be, if it's a test match or a one-day international. You never get both in the same year involving Australia. And you're dead right. This event is locked in in the week before the Australian Open, which doesn't change its times terribly much, and I think that's part of its strength. And I think to expand on that, if, for example, Tasmania was to have regular test cricket, it'd be nice to think that it could be at the same time every year, so you can build up an event around that in the way that the Sydney to Hobart yacht race, we all know when that is every year, and the things that go on around that are really very special around town. So you're spot on. It's got a really lovely niche in the summer sports programming.
Bartoli now breaks again, leading 4 games to love in this opening sets, and there's plenty of other sports other than just the cricket and also the tennis down here in Hobart. Peter, what are some of the other big sporting events and sporting fixtures? Hobart and also Tasmania in general.
Well, I guess there's an ongoing discussion about AFL football, and over the last 10 years, Hawthorn have played matches regularly in northern Tasmania, in Launceston, and that's become very much a part of the sporting landscape in that part of the state, and also for people in the south. You can have a discussion anytime you want as to if it'd be possible to have a Tasmanian-based AFL team. There's talk of North Melbourne playing some AFL matches next year, as soon as next year, over at Bellreef Oval on the other side of the river. So in the footy season, we're not as well served as some other places in terms of regular top-level football, which is another reason why these sort of events are so special, because in a city like Hobart, you mentioned the cricket and the yacht racing. Apart from this, you're down to the more sort of district level and the more suburban level of sport. So we take every chance we get in Tasmania to see sport of a high calibre.
How did you get into commentary
with
the ABC? How far back do we have to go?
With the ABC?
Or just in general?
Yeah. Gosh, would you believe I've been doing this sort of stuff for 20 years? It's amazing how the years go by, which is a good sign, Peter, because it probably means it's been pretty enjoyable along the way.
Yes.
Oh, look, I just started out, with a microphone somewhere, with someone to talk to and someone to talk about, and you sort of go from there. Community radio is a great start, I believe, in this sort of business. And yeah, I just sort of stuck at it, really, and always thoroughly enjoyed being at events and describing them and talking to the people around them. I've always found that very interesting, and I have to say, over the years, I've particularly enjoyed this Marion International.
So a chance here for Vesnina. He's got a couple of break points. One save by Bartoli. I'll talk about the other events that you've commentated on in a moment, because I know you've done some of the big events around the world, like the Olympic Games and the Commonwealth Games. But what about doing commentary at the Old Centre? Oh, this is my first time down to Hobart. Could you tell us what commentating is like when this sort of media centre isn't here?
I'll tell you what it involved. You had a mobile phone, and we used to stand behind these large sort of wind barriers, if you like, at the back of this old grandstand behind where we are now. And you had to be very careful that you didn't make too much noise, because if you did, you'd put off the players, and the last thing you want to be, Peter, is the story.
Yes.
He's the guy that disrupted the final of the Tasmanian Women's International. So you had to whisper, you had to use your discretion as to when you spoke up. But sometimes on radio in particular, that can be very effective if you get it right. But look, to be honest, it never really bothered me that much. There's other times it was fairly primitive, but the people around the tennis centre were always very helpful, and we got by. And it was just always, as I said, great to come up here and watch these tremendous players who were really fine-tuning their games ahead of the Australian Open. So yeah, just whatever you could do, wherever you could do it, we somehow found a way, and that's often the where you have your best fun in this sort of thing, I think.
You've, as I mentioned, with your career with the ABC, you've done some of the big events around the world. You've done Commonwealth Games, you've done Olympic Games around the place. what are your reflections and memories on doing big sporting events as say opposed to doing a smaller tennis event like this?
Well, I think the thing I would say is that there's not as much difference as you'd think between something on a sort of smaller level. I mean, I was at the Commonwealth Games in India in October, and that was an incredible experience. But you're there at the Commonwealth Games track and field, and it occurs to you that look, it's not 1,000 miles away from your regional primary school carnival. There are people in different colours. They're getting out their prizes. It's all run along the same lines, and it's just, of course, it's on a bigger scale. I mean, it'd be nonsense to say it's not. But sometimes I think the difference between the really big things and the small things is not as great as you would think. Of course, the personalities involved are just a little bit more. I don't know. They have a special quality, don't they? The outstanding sports people, the elite people. So they're a bit of a breed apart. But it's people. They're trying to win their race. The organisers are doing the best they can. They're reliant upon the weather and people turning up and a bit of luck here and there. So I'm not downplaying those events at all, but it's all really good fun. It's just at the higher level. It's the pressure these people are under, and the sort of person that can make it at that level is separates them, I think.
Well, it's interesting because I think you also covered the shooting.
Yes.
Of the Commonwealth Games. Do you ever sit back as you're at the firing range, think, how good is this? I'm covering shooting in India for the Commonwealth Games for an Australian broadcaster.
Well, I guess what you're trying to do all the time really is just do the best job you can do, and you want to make sure that you can fulfil the people's faith in you that they gave you this job to do. But you do often find yourself in situations. And the shooting in India is a good one, where you think, wow, how on earth did I manage to get here? And what sort of that's a great play there from Bartoli. Gee, she's solid, isn't she?
She really is.
Yeah, you're just trying to get the best outcome that you can get. But over the years, I have found myself in quite amazing situations. Shooting venues in India, in the middle of the Sydney Harbour for the yacht race. I've never worked on an Olympic Games, Peter. I have to correct you on that.
Oh, okay.
The middle of Test cricket venues, interviewing captains at the toss. I mean, that's the sort of stuff that not really many people get to do. So you often find yourself in situations that other people otherwise wouldn't do. And I've always enjoyed that. But it often just comes down to the people who are doing it. They're often the most interesting thing. Whether you're at a Olympic Games or one of these sort of events, there's always people around. I find that sort of keeps me going.
What's been your in a broadcast capacity? What's been your sporting highlight that you've been a part of?
Oh, gee, it's a big question.
I've got all the tough questions here. Get my interview
look,
practice in.
I don't know. I mean, I think any time, and I'm sure you'd relate to this, Pete. Any time that it comes off well, and you're really pleased with it, I always find that satisfying, whether it's to a local audience or a national audience or sometimes an international audience. If it's really worked, I always find that satisfying. So you could therefore say that the thing you've done the best is the most satisfying. I couldn't really answer that. But I've got a lot of enjoyment out of the Sydney to Hobart over the years. I've found that really sort of enriching, and it's been an event that I guess has been good to me. So I think that's possibly been the most rewarding. But any day you have a good day on air is a good one,
Any day where there's play. I know you were looking after the crickets for ABC local radio on a Tuesday night, and they managed to get a game in, which was good.
That was it was a terrific game too. 15 overs aside, and I tell you what, the people that went there, they would have had a ball, and they'll be back next time. And this whole thing of 2020 cricket is a phenomenon, really. But it was, I mean, if you'd said to someone 10 years ago, 15 overs per side, you would have said that's not a proper game of cricket. Don't even tell me about it. But really, it had a quality to it that I think we as broadcasters enjoyed. I'm pretty sure, I'm almost certain the fans enjoyed it. And that format of the game is here to stay. What we were lucky with on Tuesday, Peter, was the weather. We just got a little window where it didn't rain, and we got our 15 overs per side in.
So Vesnina now with game points, bring this back to 4-2. She's worked her way back into this match. Bartoli missing there, another unforced error. So 4-2.
You asked me talking about tennis. You asked me about events that I've covered, and a follow-up question might be, what about people that you've interviewed? And I remember very well, some years ago now in Sydney, when I was working in Sydney for the ABC, I covered one of those Masters, seniors tennis events.
Yep.
And I distinctly remember in the space of about 3 or 4 days, interviewing one-on-one with virtually no one else there, Jimmy Connors, Bjorn Borg, John McEnroe and Guillermo Vilas.
Wow.
Now, for someone of my generation, these guys were just absolute legends of not just tennis, but of sport. And I was amazed that no one else was there doing what I was doing. And to be in the company of those people, and once again I come back to my point, that calibre of champion, there's some sort of quality there, isn't it? It's really interesting to sort of observe from close quarters. So of all the people I've met around sport and interviewed, I reckon that group of tennis players, from what I consider to be the glory days or the heyday of tennis, was really something special. And they could play a bit too. I mean, that's going back in a few years. They were still relatively young men.
Yep.
And I fell in love with the game, and when I was a kid, and really, I think when I was growing up I grew up in Sydney, but the thing was, of course, cricket was a dominant thing. In my case, it was the rugby codes, rugby league and rugby union, but tennis was right up there.
Yeah.
It was the other game. There were 3 games, and everyone played it, and everyone followed it and talked about it, and it was just a really big sport. And I don't know if that's still the case for the kids these days.
Sadly not. So much choice out there as well. Bartoli doing okay on serve, 30 love.
I'm really impressed with Bartoli.
Double-handed both sides. Occasionally switches hands too, so she goes to 40 love. And do you still play?
Well, what a question. No, I don't play, but I do play another version of tennis called real tennis. Do you know about real tennis or royal tennis?
Yeah, I do know. Real tennis, is that real tennis played indoors?
Yeah.
It is. It's was the forerunner, I think, to this that we're seeing, the outdoor tennis.
That's right. And there's a court here in Hobart that's or club or a court, and this is a good rally, isn't it?
Very well done for Vesnina moving forward.
I'm really impressed with the way Bartoli moves. She's not one of these streamlined athletes, but she's quick across the court and anticipates really well.
She certainly is. Real tennis indoor. That's been going 16th century, I think. The origins.
It goes back as far as you could date anyone hitting a ball over a net anywhere. It is the forerunner of this sport. There are approximately 50 courts around the world. 3 of them are in Australia. There's a club in Melbourne it's got 2 courts. There's a club in Ballarat, and there's a club in Hobart, which is the oldest of the 3 Australian courts. But it's a remarkable game, and so many elements of it resemble this form of tennis. What real tennis people call lawn tennis. I think real tennis will do, but it has a similar scoring system. There's a net, and like this game, you just got to keep getting the ball over the net, basically, and you'll do okay. Quite a complex scoring setup.
And you've got the walls to contend with as well, and one of them there's a sloping roof on part of the walls there. So how long's the Hobart Club been in existence?
1875.
Wow.
1875, and it was on someone's private residence once upon a time, but it's now a thriving club, beautifully located right in the centre of Hobart, and in fact the greatest player in the world, and some say the greatest player that's ever played the game, Robert Fay. Actually, if you go down to the clubhouse there, you'll see his name is the Tasmanian Open singles champion in this form of tennis, lawn tennis.
Okay.
And he transferred to the game when he was in his early 20s and has gone on to become a legend in his sport, which maybe unfortunately for him means no one's really heard of him.
Yep. But
in his own little world, he's a legend. If he'd stuck at this form of the game, I reckon, given his level of skills with the racket, he probably would have made his mark as a singles player. He's in his 40s now, but yeah. So Hobart was his opportunity to get into the game and to dominate the world in the game. If I could expand on that, the professional up at the Royal Tennis Club, Barry Totes, who's a fabulous guy and a very good teacher of the game, tells me the story of when he was working in Newport, Rhode Island at the club there. He had the opportunity one day to have a hit with Martina Navratilova, who was playing at the lawn tennis, the grass court tournament beside her.
Yep.
Beside there. And she came in and had a hit with him, having never seen the game before. And he said she was just absolutely phenomenal. She was able to volley everything and cover the court like a panther, he said. So occasionally these guys have a bit of a go at it, and they can test their skills.
So Vesnina now serving to stay in this first set. Nicely done.
She's just relentless, Bartoli.
It's like hitting a brick wall
Yeah.
we're talking about on Monday. Just amazing. And she's off to a good start here in this game. So your role here, obviously covering all the major sport that happens, but involved with ABC Grandstand as well. Do you have your own local radio here in Tasmania? Have its own show?
Yeah, I do a lot of work on local radio here. Some people probably hear me on the national stuff through the year. During the footy season, I tend to be a bit more localised. But I do a lot of work on local radio. I have a program on Saturday mornings, 11 till 12, all year round, folks, which is always a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to getting that going again and to being up here actually for this Fed Cup tie that's coming up, Peter. That's going to be a good event.
It's going to be very exciting and really fitting considering the new facility that's been built. So
that's a good one. And I think having it the week after the Australian Open is, I would go as far to say, perfect timing. People will be thinking about tennis. Let's hope that Stozer and Groth, who are, let's assume, our singles players, have good tournaments at the Australian Open. And there should never be, and the weather should be better than this in a month's time. Let's hope so. It couldn't be better set up really for a really strong tie and a good way to show, I guess, the tennis authorities that this venue is a really good option for them.
Good serving by Vesnina. Mentioned serving to stay in the set. Got a couple of game points. abc.net.au/Hobart is where we can find you.
Thank you, Peter. That's a generous plug. And you've been doing a wonderful job up here, I've got to say. I've been eavesdropping on your commentary. And
you've had your own personal commentator for a couple of days up here.
But isn't it a marvellous game to observe? How about yourself? Oh, is a left cord. She won't miss this.
Nice
She just has got, her margins of error are so small that it's rare that she's outplayed. If you want to win a point against Marion Bartoli, you've got to beat her.
Yeah, exactly.
She won't give you much.
Nice little fake apology too at the end there.
Look,
I could hear the crowd up here in the media centre not happy with suggesting it's a fake apology. It should be outlawed.
I think. I actually think it's a nice thing. Look how far she stands in here for this. Is it a second serve?
No, that's the first
ball.
Yeah,
she's really climbing all over those first serves.
Oh boy. Well, I know, and I understand it's part of tennis etiquette, but by putting your hand up, you don't actually mean it. You don't actually mean if you...
Maybe you do. Maybe you're saying, look, this time it was me, next time it probably won't be. You know?
So I'm sorry, but I'm not really sorry because I've just won the point and I've won the game.
I want to ask you a question. You've been watching this tournament and you've been following the tennis very closely. What do you think about the drop shot as an option, as a strategy?
I know you've been discussing this with your fellow journos down the other end. As a strategy, I don't mind it if it's used occasionally. I think players tend to overuse it at times where it gets to be easily read. It's great when you've got your opponent out of position and you can just neatly pop it over. Obviously, different surfaces, varying degrees of success. On a surface like this where the ball sits up, if it's not timed correctly, it can be in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of variation.
So why do they use it so often, do you think?
Well, a couple of reasons. One, probably because they're tired. If it's a long rally and they want to try and get out of it. Another reason, try and throw players off their rhythm. As you see, Vesnina hold to lead. Bartoli now serving for the set. We see players wanting to just change up the rhythm if they've been rallying from the baseline. And as we can see with Vesnina, for example, she's down 5-3 to try and throw Bartoli off her rhythm, try and keep her guessing. Throw it in just to keep her moving forward and where she might move on the court. It's a convenience too. By putting the short ball in, you want to try and get your player into the net.
How often are there stats around as to how often players win points on the drop shot?
I'm sure there would be, but I don't have them to hand.
Yeah, I don't think it's more than 50% from what I can see. It just seems to, if your execution, this is a good rally. Oh, she's having to work a bit here, isn't she, Marion?
She is.
Yeah, I don't know. I just notice it, and I just wonder if players, maybe these days lack a bit of imagination, or whether they couldn't develop their aggressive tendencies a bit more, volleying and attacking the net a bit more rather than just trying to pick a drop shot and toss the coin with it a bit.
Well, certainly we're seeing a reduction in players who enjoy coming to the net. We don't see well, we don't see many serve volleys now. But a lot of the women's players in WTA Tour play a lot of doubles as well, and it helps. We've seen the Italian players, they play a lot of doubles, quite successful at it. So Soraya Rani, Roberta Vinci, they're not afraid to come to the net because they've had good success on the doubles court, so they know how to construct those points. As we see, one of those drop shots.
Yep.
And Bartoli changing hands. You see, she likes to go one-handed at times, and she likes to swap between her hands with that. And there's probably the point you were talking about. The player's very quick to get into the net. If they're able to read it, then it's not as effective.
Maybe in the case of playing Bartoli with this double-handed forehand, maybe it's a way of exploiting the fact she hasn't got nearly as much reach. The fact she had to use the one hand there tells you that perhaps against her it might be a decent strategy.
Hasn't stopped her though.
No. Although she's got a bit of work to do here. I heard you say earlier, she's missed that. It's harder to serve out a set than it is to serve out a match.
I know, it's harder to serve out a set and a match.
Oh, yes.
The same thing.
Yeah. So she's love 40 down here, and there's a chance that Vesnina could get back into this.
Yeah, well, she's just been grinding away. Yeah. She hasn't been too far off the pace, as Safina wasn't either, but she was just steamrolled in the end on Monday night.
I thought Safina went pretty well.
Yeah, she shouldn't be too upset with the way she played. And if it had been anyone else, she would have won. And there you see, that's classic Bartoli right there. That's what we've seen throughout this tournament, just keeping moving forward, the heavy ground strokes, seeing that opportunity and then taking it. Patient.
She's been a standout, no doubt, although, as I said, let's not count our chickens. She's got some work to do here. But apart from Bartoli, who have you liked so far in the tournament?
Oh, I've liked what Yamila Groth has brought to the table, continuing on her good form from Brisbane. So that was a call from the linesperson down the other end of the court, because we're a bit short on lines people working to the three courts today. In terms of other players, Sarah Rani, the number 7 seed, has been quite impressive. She dismantled Alicia Mollick's game today. Bethany Matek-Sands, you can't write off, had a great run at the Hopman Cup and pushed Justine Enna in the final in an amazing match, and she's bringing that confidence in to the Marilla Hobart International. So there are a number of contenders for this match, for this title I should say, and I think Roberta Vinci had a win over Elena Baltasha today, so she's a contender as well, the number 4 seed.
I just thought, having seen Bartoli play so well on Monday night, that we might have our winner here and there, but right here, but she's doing well here. She's back to deuce. I just got the impression that she's a regular top 20 player. She's been in as high as 11 and 10 in the world. I mean, you can't discount the fact she was a Wimbledon finalist once. She looks good. She looks fit too. She's moved well. I wonder if those couple of rest days because of the rain, Peter, might have helped her out with those blisters we saw on Monday night. That's probably not a bad fact. Not a bad.
Good point. Bartoli, I can tell you, has been in Australia since November training. Yeah. So she's acclimatised. She's been here for quite some time now, preparing for the various events. Ooh.
Good return, Vesnina.
Another breakpoint opportunity.
She's 25 this year, Vesnina.
And she's had 7 opportunities to break. She's only taken the 1. Should say to Angelique Kerber, 4 games to 2 in the second set over Kudryasheva. Has taken the first set 6 games to 3. She's another player that hasn't done anything wrong thus far in the tournament. A win over Kimiko Date Krum, 7-5, 7-6. And easily put away. Vesnina breaks. Bartoli, though, still leading 5 games to 4 in the opening sets. Can I ask you about the weather patterns here?
Yes.
Because we've had 2 days of rain and no wind. The first couple of days we were here, we had wind and no rain. What is happening? As an expert of Hobart weather.
The last 2 days were not typical. It's very rare that you get rain more or less non-stop, even though it wasn't very heavy rain for that amount of time. That is not typical. Maybe at this time of the year it could be. Those windy sort of days we saw on the first couple of days of the tournament, that's much more typical. The weather, I mean, we'll look at this weather. We could look at what's been happening in Queensland, but I think the wind is our best friend here. I think if these sort of breezes stay around, we'll stay dry enough to play tennis. It was just the fact that the last couple of days it was so still, the clouds were just parked over us, and the rain just kept pattering down, and that knocked us out. So, look, it's a small island. It's a variable climate. Around about now, it probably should be a bit more stable than this, but I can recall this time last year being at this tournament, and it was just so hot. It was a heat wave, and
it got to 25 degrees, didn't it?
Oh, no. Well, I'll tell you what. With the sun as strong as it is at this part of the world, 25 and is actually pretty hot. There was no air conditioning up here, and boy, oh boy, we were really sort of labouring. So in a way, apart from this nuisance of the rain itself, this cooler weather this week's really hasn't been too much of a problem. But it's a small island, a small landmass, and the climate can be fickle. But in terms of getting this tournament over and done with on time, these breezes, I think, are what we want to see. And the forecast for the next couple of days is a lot better.
So Vesnina again serving to stay in this opening set. Has lifted in the last couple of games. A couple more unforced errors, as you can see there, from Marion Bartoli. And so Vesnina is working her way back into this match. In fact, as we take a look at the head-to-head, these two have met before, back in 2008, Indian Wells. Bartoli winning there 6-love, 6-4, but obviously a lot has changed in the years since then.
I often wonder what sort of life it is for these people. As I said to you earlier, they always have, I don't know, a certain quality about them. But just, I don't know, doing this for a living week in, week out, even though the rewards are quite outstanding, really. Dealing with all the things that come with it, the variables in the weather, form, fitness, injury. It must be a tough way to live. But if you're good and you can stay in that top 150, I guess you can be compensated. But wow, what a thing to do this every week somewhere else in the world and be at your best.
Great chance to see the world, really, isn't it?
I'm sure that there's an awful lot of there's a lot worse jobs, but just the fact they've got to be up mentally and physically every time must be really challenging for them.
Well, I'd love someone to do a reality show as the lights come on here at the Domain Tennis Centre on not so much those at the top echelons of the WTA Tour, but someone from the hundreds to 200s who spent a bit of time playing on the Challenger Circuit, the ITF Challenger Circuit. So well done by Vesnina again, moving forward. And
for those people to know that if I don't win this match, I don't know. I've got to buy an air ticket to go to America and all that stuff. It must be tough.
And where they would stay, they would have so many stories from all the different venues and places they go.
But if you can get it together, wow, what a life it would be.
So 30-15. Should mention too, their head-to-head overall is 2-all. That last time they met was Indian Wells back in 2008. Vesnina won their first two meetings, a hard court and a clay court, quite convincingly. And then from 2007 to 2008, when they met, once on clay in Strasbourg, and then in Indian Wells, it's been Bartoli all the way.
It's interesting with Bartoli. She played that final at Wimbledon, of course, and let's face it, was a bit of a bolter to get there. And that was, when was that? 07. Her record at her own Grand Slam is steady enough, but third round last year, second round, first round, fourth round's the furthest she's got, so maybe the clay's not quite her thing.
And a double fault brings up a set point now for the number one seed. Vesnina ranked 53 in the world, Bartoli 17. The new rankings have come out. With this cloud cover, no rain, but it's quite dark. So Bartoli with set points. Oh, and it's into the net. It hands Bartoli the first set.
Gee.
Vesnina not happy after doing all the hard work. 6 games to 4. She's taken at the number 1 seed. Bartoli to get us underway in the second set. So, Bartoli, not the most comprehensive of performances. Certainly was slowed down by Vesnina midway through the first set. Played her way into the match after being blown away early. Angelique Kerber leading 5 games to 4 now in the second set out on court number 1. Bit of doubles action happening too. Nice to see the recommencement of the doubles competition.
It is always good to get the doubles back out there for the fans to see the game and all corners of the court taken up. So it's definitely good to see them back out there. All 3 courts being used today. So plenty of tennis for the fans.
And the next match coming up will feature Roberta Vinci taking on Yamila Groth. Yaka, is she here? I saw her before.
Yep, talking about iPhone. She's been playing on her iPhone and just
she's a
relaxing.
very good Twitterer. Is it Twitterer or tweeter?
Tweeter, I think. We'll throw that one around. It probably changes daily.
Okay. Sounds like something you have in a speaker. Tweeter.
Yeah, no, she's been great. She was out in the court, obviously, helping us try to dry it. Was that yesterday?
So there are some great pictures we took of Yaka around.
And then she was down there. She spent about 20 or 30 minutes actually talking to some of the younger girls that were ball kids, which was great to see. And players don't have to do that, and it just shows the type of person she is. Just knows that they've probably made the girls weak just sitting and talking to her. So, she's a really nice person and great ambassador of our game.
It's something that you can leverage off as well, too, in the work that you do with all these young players who are doubling as ball kids to talk about how she goes about it.
Oh, definitely. Every time I see one of the ball kids that is very interested in playing tennis, not all of them are, and some of them just love to come and help, which is great also. But yeah, just trying to get the insight of what they've done to get to here. And a lot of the kids that we deal with down here are under 14, so they've got about 10 years before they're at this sort of level. So it's it's a great insight for them.
I can tell you that the match is over on court number 1. I'll get a final score for you in just a moment. But up in Sydney, Elisa Klebanova has won the first set from Kimi Kleisters, 6 games to 4. Kleisters leading 3-love though in the second set. And the match I was just speaking of, Angelique Kerber, 6-3, 6-4 over Alla Kudryasheva of Russia. Nice touch from Vesnina at the nets. So it means that Angelique Kerber will take on Bethany Mattek-Sands, and that match will be played after the doubles match on court 8, which has been moved around. There's been a bit of moving around of matches here, so I'm struggling to keep up, but the quarterfinal we expect will be played tonight.
Yeah, looking at the schedule, it has been changed around a fair bit, but the WTA will do a great job, and I'll give Michael a plug that he'll probably throw a few words in there too. I'm looking for a pay rise, so I'll plug him as much as I can.
Yeah, good game actually between Kerber and Mattek-Sands. The number 8 seed Kerber and Mattek-Sands in some good form heading into Melbourne next week. So what it means is that the next match on court number 1, Sara Errani and Peng Shuai of China, is actually a quarter-final match. So we're into the quarter-final stage of the tournament, which is great news.
That is unbelievable news. Wouldn't have thought about that last night.
So is Nina looking to get on the board in this second set. And what it does mean is that the tournament will slowly get back on track. been an interesting match, this one.
Yeah, I was watching earlier and I thought Vesnina was in it from the start. The scoreboard didn't really tell that, but she was controlling a lot of points but just not finishing them at the end, and I think she still continued that because she's definitely in this match. Just has to finish them off when after she's done all the hard work.
So she does hold. Vesnina, 1 game all in the second set. We're taking nominations for naming the grandstands here at the newly developed Domain Tennis Centre. Who would be in there?
That's a good one.
Don't say the Michael Roberts stand because we know why you would say that.
No, that one didn't even come into my mind. That's a good one. Because I haven't grown up in Hobart, I don't know people from back in the day that have done a lot of work, but, you know, Holloway comes to mind.
Yep.
You know, great Tasmanian players like, obviously, Frommy and Yuli can be thrown around, and I'm sure there's even more. There's Arthur Matthews, I think that's...
Well, we heard from up your way, where you're formerly from, now that you're living down here, that Alan Stone was actually was born in Launceston.
Was he? Oh, didn't know that. That's news to me. I've only lived there 22 years.
Well, he doesn't drift down at
No, he
all.
doesn't
Just
drift
to
down.
come down and see.
He doesn't have a court named after him anywhere up
No.
there. Must have been born in winter.
I don't know how the Stone court would go. Ball just coming off the tape. Nice again from Vesnina. You talked, Alex, before about taking those opportunities and could see the slight opening coming into the net and just really putting it away.
Yeah, when Vesnina's sort of owning the baseline there, it's really evident that she's dictating the points, and Bartoli's getting pushed back and obviously having to stretch with the one arm, which she doesn't really like. It's definitely helping in Vesnina's favour.
That's a very late call. And that again was made down the other end of the court. We're sure a couple of lines people own to the fact that we're on 3 courts and getting play up and happening, which is fantastic.
It's definitely a hard line to call, that far line, but yeah, they all do a great job, the linesmen, and they've been very patient with the weather as well. As have all the ball kids. They're always energised, and I'm sure the extra fizzy drinks and lollies they've been consuming over the last couple of days, keeping their energy levels high.
Bartoli, 66% first serve percentage. That's around the mark where she was on Monday night against Safina, winning 59% of the points, though, on that first serve, which is lower than Monday night. So just shows the pressure that Vesnina is putting on. She's hitting 71% of her first serves in, but only winning 44% of those points.
Sort of shows how important the return of serve is in the women's game. There's a lot more breaks of serve in the women's game than there is in the men's. And yeah, they seem to be able to take that ball early.
Bartoli holds 2-1 now in the second set after she took the first 6-4. This is second round action. In fact, the final second round match to be played here at the Hobart International for 2010. And we're into the quarter-final stage, and that'll move on pretty quickly with Roberta Vinci taking on Yamila Groth in the next match on our centre court. And then after that, we'll be rolling through to the night session, which will feature the winner of this match, take on Klara Zakopolova, and then we'll have some doubles in there too. So a busy day, but certainly a productive day for all concerned. So
Definitely take this day than the previous 2, that's for sure.
So Vesnina quickly out onto court. As we've been talking about, Alex, throughout today, the Rally for Relief is up and about.
Yeah, it's great that the stars come together and try and fundraise some money for those people who've been hurt or lost goods and homes and unfortunately lives up in Queensland. So, yeah, it's great that they all come together, and good to see Pat Rafter back out there, mentioned earlier.
Paddy will be there. I was at Melbourne Park last year for Hit for Haiti, which was just such an amazing event and a lot of fun, but obviously a serious cause behind it. And it's great to see the top players like Roger and Rafa taking a break out of their important Australian Open preparations.
Oh,
The day before a slam is a tough time. You want to sit back and relax, but they're deciding to give up their time. We'll see another long rally and they're coming up there.
Yeah, they're two great ambassadors of tennis, and shows what sort of people they really are. And even when they were travelling around in their off-season, playing events in their own countries to fundraise money for different things, Africa and even other foundations in their own countries. So yeah, it does show that they can band together and really help the world.
So details on that, particularly if you're in the Melbourne area, AustralianOpen.com is where you can find that. Tickets are available for the local audience from Ticketek. And so make sure you get your tickets. So we see Bartoli now just trying to make some inroads again on the Vesnina serve. We should also mention too that we would bring you action from the qualifying, but there's nothing happening. There's been plenty of rain up there, the qualifying events.
Yeah, I've been watching the forecast all day, and it looks like they've been getting hammered in Melbourne and the Victorian surrounds. So hopefully it can hold off and not come down to us. So,
well, exactly. The forecast we should bring up, actually. I'll bring up the forecast for tomorrow in Hobart, because that's the important one, because then after that we're pretty clear. So the forecast, cloudy with rain, clearing later in the afternoon with a top of 22 degrees. Moderate to fresh and gusty northeast winds tending northwesterly later.
we'll take early showers.
Yep, and with the semi-finals for the women's singles due on at midday, hopefully we'll be able to get that match through, and then if there's any more residual rain, get that out the way, and then get the other semi-final on at 7 o'clock local time tomorrow. We'll have all the action for you.
There's plenty of great tennis out there today. If the fans that are out here, they're getting 3 courts of great tennis that they have the option of watching. So
again, some strong work from Vesnina. Bartoli, I should say. The back of the court has a couple of breakpoint opportunities to go to a 3-1 lead now in the second set. So we just have our effects mic down momentarily. We are looking to get that fixed ASAP. That's tough. And again, the fake apology from Marion Bartoli.
I think that happened very early on, maybe the first game of the match. I think she got a nice frame on a volley, hand up, walk away.
3-1 now. She's got the break in this second set. Your opinion on the putting up of the hand? I'm anti.
Yeah,
Anti-apology.
I'd rather them if they really mean it. Some players really do. If you don't mean it, don't do it, because it's there to say sorry. So if you're saying sorry and not meaning it, it's pointless. So yeah, I'd probably agree with you. If Pat Rafter would always say sorry, mate. If he meant it, brilliant. If he didn't,
well, I think he does. He does mean it, particularly on his ball toss.
Yes.
The sorry mate, and that's fine because you're putting the player off. It's not a miss hit that wins you the point, but a point win is a point win.
Exactly right.
Not that you would tell your students that, of course.
No, but there's luck involved in everything. The harder you work, the luckier you get, they like to say. So, yeah, everyone's going to get a little bit of luck out there. It's all part of sport.
So keep your tweets coming through to Hobart Tennis. Plenty of retweeting going on.
Yeah, I haven't retweeted something from you guys for a while. Better get on that.
How many followers do you have?
Not as many as you, maybe 35.
35.
It's cost me a lot of money to get those 35 as well.
Yep. It's either follow me or you don't get lessons.
Yep.
So Bartoli solid serving in this game to race to 40 love and to go to a 4-1 lead.
Wonder if Bartoli's drinking a Monster today. The other night when she played Safina, she was drinking a Monster, and even after the match, she finished the can off at dinner.
We should explain that Monster is an energy drink here in Australia for our fans all around the world.
Red Bull-like, but stronger.
Bartoli holds 4 games to 1 now in this second set after she took the first 6 games to 4. Arani and Peng Shuai are also out on court with the lights on court number 1. And that is entering quarter-final stage, which is very exciting for all concerned here. And coming up next, Roberta Vinci will take on Jarmila Groth, and then the final match, or singles-wise anyway, features the winner of this match to take on Klara Zakopalova. And the 7 o'clock crowd, they'll be held up just a little bit.
That's okay. Jamila was playing really well the other night. I was very surprised. I haven't seen her play live, and yeah, she impressed me with the way she strike the ball and movement. She's a strong girl and was very composed out there in the cold conditions. So yeah, hopefully she can continue going on. Especially unfortunately, Alicia losing this morning. So it'd be great to see her fly the Aussie flag.
Certainly will. Be great to have another Australian winner of this event. What do they win? What's is the trophy called anything? It's the Tasmanian Open trophy. I think it's engraved on the front of it.
Ooh, it's a very good question.
Carved out.
I did go and pick it up from the trophy maker. He had a bit of a clean. I didn't actually look at it.
It's currently 19 degrees in Hobart too, we should mention. The breeze picking up slightly. As you have another of your fans up while you're on the phone to tell them not to call while you're on air.
Yeah, I should have posted that tweeted that actually. Oops.
On air, can't do anything, can't take your call, dinner plans put off. So Vesnina now serving to really get herself back into the second set. We saw the same thing with her in the first set where she was down a similar margin and managed to work her way back into it, but it's a tougher ask with Bartoli looking in control. 16.9 degrees, 19 degrees in Hobart at the moment, so a little on the cool side, but not too bad.
Be good if the sun was out. Might be 20.
If we're lucky. Nice finish. And again, Vesnina taking the opportunity to come into the nets.
You just see as soon as Bartoli stretches with that one arm, everything sort of gets out of whack with her strength and movement. She's already practicing getting that two-fisted forehand going again. Very energetic on the return.
We can see her behind the court too, in between points. She's practicing. Double fault for Vesnina. Her second for the match. So the door slightly open here for Bartoli to break. Nice up the line again from Vesnina. That's been really the go-to shot, that backhand up the line.
Yeah, a lot of the shots, when they do create the down the line, it's the set-up shots before that. And that's what we try and teach. It's normally not the one shot that does it. It's the 1, 2, 3 shots of sequence of play that set up that that space in the court.
And it's a bit of patience too.
Very much so.
So being patient within the rally, biding your time, get your player out of position. Don't need to finish off the point in 1 or 2 shots. And another double faults.
That definitely hurts after that point.
That shoulder came down, that arm came down from Vesnina. Seeing the ball drop too low. So another break point opportunity for Marion Bartoli. You can see at the top of your screen, practicing a return. She's stepping in, standing on the baseline to put the pressure on Vesnina now. To come up with a big first serve. And really the problem was that serve was too short, right into the hitting zone of Bartoli, and she breaks. 5 games to 1 now in the second set.
Thank you. Roll the ball back.
And it's a good tactic that Bartoli's employing by stepping on the baseline and then taking a step inside. You're forcing your opponent to come up with that big serve to try and get past you.
Yeah, definitely. Just taking a bit of time and space away from the server after finishing their shot, and it comes back so quick. So, yeah, it was a great return deep down the guts.
That's solid serving. It's been a feature of the Bartoli game. Seen her rise up the rankings if you're able to get through your service games easily. Vesnina's had 8 opportunities to break, only taken 2. Whereas Bartoli 5 of 6.
Definitely taking her opportunities there, isn't she?
Certainly is. We'll want to get this wrapped up quickly before she plays in the night session. Kicks back in the lovely club rooms that we've got there.
Yeah, they're probably chilling out on the couches, watching some tennis from Sydney.
No, they're all watching the live stream from Hobart, aren't they?
Or watching the live stream from Hobart. You interrupted me, I was about to say that.
Oh, really?
I'll say yes.
This match has been in progress just 1 hour and 12 minutes. That's nice again from Vesnina. Seeing that opportunity up the line.
She definitely had Bartoli on the move in that point. Bartoli a good 2 metres behind the baseline. As I said earlier, Vesnina, when she owns the baseline, she gives herself a chance.
Irani and Pang underway on court number 1 at the start of the quarter-final stage of the event. Full stretch Vesnina, just couldn't bring it around. Back to 30 all.
Bartoli can definitely create some angle when she's on the stretch there with the both sides, both wings. She can definitely create some angle, and even on the defence, which she did in that point.
And I think that's also based on the double-handed
Yeah, the outside hand really comes into play. And
Exactly. Off both sides
Yeah.
too to be able to generate that angle.
Yep.
So now, with that serve, 40-30, it's match point for the number 1 seed. And there it is. So Marion Bartoli, after a struggle in the first set, easy in the second. And the number 1 seed is through to the quarterfinals of the Marilla Hobart International. 6-4, 6-1 over Elena Vesnina, Russia, in 1 hour and 15 minutes.